Hi there everybody, Morgan with Event Answer here, and today I'm answering your questions about event planning. I've been an event planner for about 7 years now and love sharing the knowledge that I've learned over the years because I didn't go to school to be an event planner. I've learned as I've gone along and had some great mentorship along the way, and I want to pass on that knowledge to you. So I've gathered up a bunch of questions that you left for me, and let's get right into answering those. One of the first questions I got was about the inventory I carry and what is kind of a standard inventory to have as an event planner. And I would say there really isn't a standard inventory because it varies widely on the kinds of events that you're planning. So are you a wedding planner? Are you a party planner? Are you galas or conferences? Those are all going to have very different kinds of supplies that you keep on hand. So today I'm just going to focus on smaller events because I feel like that's most of what people are doing, but you would want to scale up obviously if you're doing some bigger things. I would say keeping a handful of linens on hand in some basic colors. So black, white, and then maybe a couple of others that make sense for your clientele. I would also keep on hand some dispensers for beverages and some food display items. I have these items in very neutral schemes, so acrylic, black and white are my favorites, but I do have a little bit of wood and a little bit of metal because that's kind of the vibe of a lot of the parties I do. So having something to be able to serve food and beverages from, and then having items that are going to give you some height and some texture in not only your venue, but also on a table. So I keep wood crates. I've got some boxes and some standard sized things that I can just layer up and helps me build a foundation. One key part of my setup is actually a backdrop stand. So you've probably seen my PVC pipe one. That's a great place to start. But if you do travel a lot, if you're going to be doing outside events, you can always upgrade into purchasing a backdrop stand. I highly recommend having one if you're starting out and then building into a couple depending on how large of a venues you're working in. But it's really key to building a really great backdrop, building a vignette in a larger space. Photo ops are really popular, so having that kind of piece is really beneficial. Glassware is another standard piece I tend to keep on hand. I don't have tons of the same thing, but I've got sets of 3 to 5 of a lot of pieces, and that can be just cylinders, that can be shaped glass pieces for candles, and those come in really handy because you can not only fill them and make them centerpieces, but they can also be used for structural purposes. I think building your inventory as you go is really important. You don't have to run out and get thousands of dollars worth of equipment right off the bat as you're starting out. Buy things as you go and build that into the pricing with your clientele. If someone's wanting a photo booth, that's the time to buy some backdrop linens as well as a backdrop stand and build that into the pricing with that customer. Or if you're doing a wedding and you need centerpieces, that may be the time to buy some standard glassware or serving dishes or things like that. So I don't tend to buy lots of things unless I've got a purpose for it, but I always have my eye out for a good deal. So I feel bad because so many times you guys ask me where I've gotten things, but I buy so many of my props on clearance from a prior season, and then I repurpose it the next year or in a following season where I haven't paid full price for it. I always keep my eye out for things that are on clearance or on sale that might be beneficial to add into my inventory, because at this point I kind of know the types of events and parties I'm doing and what looks those tend to have. So for instance, I was in the Target spot and I found these little gems. So look at these cute little wood risers. Like, they came in 3 different heights and they're wood with black little stands. They were $3 a piece. And this is something, I wish I'd had this for the llama setup that I just completed, because that would have been perfect to put little cupcakes on. But this is the kind of thing that I find on clearance and in random places that is gonna add value to my setups. And so I got a set of these and I plan to go back and get more once they restock the section. So if you're in Target in the next couple weeks, you should check into these. The next question ties into inventory, and I had someone ask, what are some basic colors to reuse for different themes? And then a second question of a very similar nature, asking how to repurpose decorations from previous events. So these all kind of meld together. And to answer the first question, I would say pick a couple basic colors. So obviously black and white. You should have some basic linens, some risers, some dishes, or something like that. In those basic colors, acrylic is another great one to have on hand. And then I would say think about your clientele. What kind of parties and what kind of themes are you already working on that have some similar color schemes? So I find right now what I'm doing, I'm using a lot of neutral linens as kind of a base layer for a lot of things. So that can be a backdrop fabric or a table linen. And then it also kind of weaves into like natural baskets, and some wood elements are all kind of mixed in there. So that fits really well right now with my clientele and some of the setups I'm doing. But say you're doing really bright kids parties, I would pick one or two colors that fit in most of those themes that you can repurpose. And when it comes to repurposing themed items, I try to build my items in a way that the specific theming could be removed from it, or the specific theming isn't the main element. So for instance, if you were doing, let's say, a Minnie Mouse party, I wouldn't go out and find a tablecloth that has Minnie Mouse on it. I would find a pink or a polka dot tablecloth that could be the base layer, and it fits with the Minnie Mouse theme, but it doesn't have Minnie Mouse on it. And then that polka dot tablecloth I can use for a princess party or some other thing that is adjacent and could utilize that kind of feel and color scheme, but it doesn't have Minnie Mouse on it. The other advice would be when you're making props, have props that you can put things on and off of. So pillars, walls, you know, the wall itself may be a certain color, but you can slip fabric over it and change it up, or you could put a printed poster or banner on it, which would change the look of it. So finding those basic pieces that you can just tweak a little bit to be specific to a theme, I think is the most important. And if it's something that you do that's double-sided, so a lot of the things I do are made out of foam core, I'll put one design on the front side and then a different design on the back, so I can reuse it in another way. You'll probably see items pop in and out of my videos, and it's the same item but been used in a different way. I have these like little white picket fence with grass in them, which I used in a really old video as a spring setup. But then later I popped the grass out of it so I could use it in like a woodland themed setup. So it had a more natural look to it, but I still was able to use the grass. So just kind of look for pieces like that that can be used in multiple ways, and try not to spend the money on the really big character pieces. Try and invest in some pieces that are multifunctional, like linens and backdrop fabrics. Another great question was paper invites versus electronic invites. Is paper dead? You know, is everything by email now? And I would say no. I think each type of invitation has its place, and this is especially true depending on the formality of the event and probably the age of the audience you're trying to target. So for paper invites, I would say are much more formal. That would be weddings, galas, fundraising events where you want to establish a really high-end kind of look. Whereas electronic invitations, I would say, are much more casual. And this could be email invites, this could be Facebook event invites, even private Facebook events. It doesn't have to be like a community-wide ticketed event. And that could be even weddings. If it's a very casual wedding with a young audience, a Facebook invite can sometimes be enough. What also might be a determining factor is cost. So paper invites can be a little pricey depending on how you do them and what all is involved, but the postage can also be extraordinarily expensive. So you do want to keep that in mind. If you're trying to be more cost effective, you might put a Facebook event up or send an email invite out versus putting all of your money into custom calligraphy and all the postage involved. In my experience though, I have found that the that a lot of times there's a mix of paper and electronic usage for invitations. So I used to do a lot of galas and recognitions, and we would send out a formal invitation with a RSVP card, but we would always follow up with a digital reminder, a digital version of the invitation so they could have it, because those cards get lost in your house, and reminding people that they need to RSVP for your party. So I feel like there's always a little bit of both involved. Again, later I was doing some galas for a membership association, and we would send out a formal invitation, but then we would also follow that up with multiple emails, trying to get some of their info and send fundraising information. A lot of what I do now are community-based events that are either ticketed or free and open to the community, and most of that is all digital. We're all over Facebook, Instagram, our website. That's where most of that communication happens, and there's really not paper. I mean, occasionally a flyer or a poster, but there's no invitation for something like that. So I think it depends upon the formality, the age of your audience, and sometimes you're gonna end up with a balance of both. Someone asked, what are my favorite websites to order event supplies, including linens especially, but also some florals? I've got a couple that I have used over the years, and I'll link some of those below so that you can see them. It depends on what you're looking for. So if you're looking for linens and basic event supplies, efavormart.com is probably a go-to for some linens, some event backdrop stuff. If you're kind of more on the professional level, you would use something like Event Decor Direct. They would sell large rental quality event supplies. So if you're looking for something higher quality, Event Decor Direct would be one. eFavorMart is really great for if you're getting started out, if you're on a budget, or if you're trying to get lots of things. If you're looking for disposable dishware, so little cups, dishes, plastic plates, things like that, Smarty Had a Party is one of my favorites. They've got the most unique setup that I found, and they're great to work with, easy to do. Their website's really nice, so that's a good one. When it comes to flowers, and I mean silk flowers, not fresh flowers, I've ordered from a couple places, but I tend not to order so many flowers online, simply because I like to touch them. Most things can look great in a photo, but when you're up close on a silk flower, you can really tell the price point and the quality of a flower. I have used A Floral, they're okay. I've used some from eFavorMart, they're okay. If you're needing florals where they're not right up next to somebody, so if a backdrop requires florals, I think that's fine. But if you're talking about wedding bouquets, centerpieces, things where people are going to be pretty close to them, I would try and find something locally you can put your hands on and see and touch, because there's a real quality range when it comes to silk flowers. So you can definitely try ordering some online, but if I can, I'll try and buy them locally. I got a great question about how to decorate a stage, and this is a really great skill, and I may end up doing a video on this alone, because there's a lot of things we could really delve into. The first thing you need to think about is how big the stage needs to be. So if it's just someone speaking up there with a podium, you don't need a very big stage. It could be 6x6, 6x8, but if you're doing something where it's an award ceremony, it's a speaker panel where you're gonna have a table or a bunch of chairs up there for someone to speak, you'll need a bigger one. And then if you're getting into like a music concert, you're gonna need something of some significant size. You always wanna check with your band to see how much size they require of a stage, and then give yourself a little bit more room to decorate, because if they need so much space and then you put up a backdrop or props and that takes away from their space, they're not going to be very happy. So make sure you work with your bands about how much space they need and plan accordingly for that. When it comes to decorating a stage, you want to make sure you're thinking big enough. So if you put something that you would normally put as a centerpiece on a stage, it's gonna look dinky. So you wanna make sure you're putting things that have significant volume and size that are gonna make a statement on the stage, and they don't just get lost in the backdrop. I really love lighted backdrops for this. One of my go-to for filling a stage and making it look really full and professional is live plants. A Boston fern is gonna make a wonderful statement on a stage because one plant can be huge and it fills up all kinds of space. So I highly recommend looking into ferns and other plants because they make a great accent on a stage. The other thing you want to think about is lighting. I have been to so many events where they have this beautiful stage and there's people up there talking or doing things and you can't see. And it's the worst. So if you don't know how to do lighting for a stage yourself, make sure you hire a professional to handle that for you. You know, even just a spotlight and a couple uplights could go a long way for that, and it doesn't have to be super expensive, but make sure you have proper lighting for your stage. The other thing you want to think about is how people will move across your stage. So if it's someone just standing at a podium, they come up the side stair and they only stand there and they go back down the side stair, that gives you a lot of space to do things on the stage decoration-wise. Whereas if it's an award ceremony and you've got someone standing at a podium and people have to walk across that stage to receive an award, you have to make sure you leave enough space on the stage for them to make that pass, and you don't put anything down that could be a tripping hazard for them. I hope you enjoyed today's video. This was so much fun to get to sit down and chat about events with you. Because honestly, you don't need a degree to get into event planning. So much of it is learning by doing and learning from others. I had some really great mentors when I got started out in this career, and I hope I can pass on some of that knowledge to you. If you enjoyed this Q&A, let me know. Leave a like on this video, and if you'd like to have other questions answered, leave them in the comment box below. I'll consider doing another one of these if this was something you enjoyed, and I would love to sit down and answer more questions for you. So until the next one of those, you can check out some of the other projects I've got over here. I do lots of event setups, backdrops, balloons, and other decorating tips. So until the next time, have a good day.